A guide to leaving the UK. The UK is experiencing general decline due to high living costs, stagnant GDP, and increased crime rates. Housing shortages persist despite promises of increased building, while high taxes and climate-related levies strain the economy. The cost of living, referred to as early as 2021 as the cost of living crisis, sees no signs of slowing down under the new government. Electricity prices, for instance, are on average 3 times what they are in the USA. Food, transport are going up as well in price, but salaries remain stagnant. Employment taxes have gone up. There is a new 20% value-added tax on private schools, and the winter fuel allowance for a large group of elderly citizens have been removed, despite the ruling party's own report that removing that benefit would cause around 4,000 excess deaths each winter. Additionally, there are concerns about erosion of freedom of speech and access to information. The economic climate, as well as news stories about illegal immigrants committing crimes, has pushed up racist slurs and hate speech as well. In a knee-jerk response, politicians have perhaps conveniently included criticism of some of their politics under hate speech laws as well, and thus limiting free speech, in a way catching people by surprise. This in turn can cause more frustration. Hate. Some immigrants fear the rising tensions could lead to violence and are considering moving. Unemployment is also on the rise, with the national rate increasing to 4.3% in October 2024 from 4% a year prior. Notably, the IT sector has seen a significant decrease in available jobs, with a reported 36% drop since 2022 nationwide and over 50% in London, reflecting the broader economic challenges. I won't delve too much into politics here. Factors people blame include the new Labour government, the previous Tory government, Brexit, COVID, the World Economic Forum's influence over politicians, the lack of housing. The political aspects, whilst worthy of discussion, should have their own episode. Here I will focus on how to exit the UK if you come to that conclusion. Please also check out our Moving to Another Country, which is more generic. This is episode exclusively focused on the UK. Start by making a pros and cons list with the UK and countries you consider realistically moving to. Things like freedom, taxes, safety, climate. Try not to be too influenced by the news and social media. If you already have a good job and decent life in the UK, then those are still massive pros, so I'm not saying go and throw yourself at moving. But for a lot of people, especially those who have easy options, like dual citizenships, you should strongly consider moving, as things are going to get worse in the UK, and if you are not in a great place in terms of career and housing, that is a good time to move. In any case, my advice is to limit exposure to the decline of the UK economy. Do not tie yourself, such as buying a house or entering other long-term agreements such as investments. A stable area for investment is the good old USA. UK-only citizens have fewer options than, say, dual EU or UK citizens, but may still move to Ireland thanks to the Common Travel Area Agreement. And vice versa. After 5 years in Ireland, you could apply for citizenship, which makes you a full EU citizen. It can be faster with you have a near relative who is an Irish citizen. So Ireland can be the gateway to the EU. As a citizen of the EU, you have from Finland to Spain, so to choose from. Barriers to consider here are languages, but of course they are learnable. The Eurozone has challenges similar to that of the UK, but they are largely dependent on the conflict in Ukraine causing high energy prices and stability concerns. If the conflict ends this year, the Eurozone should see an economic upswing. Personally, I prefer Southern Europe because of the warm climate. Even if times get more dire, at least you have that. North America and Australia and New Zealand have been wanted destinations for Brits to go to since these became part of the Anglosphere. If you have ancestry or another easy way to get there, these are no-brainers. All these countries have considerably better economic outlook than the UK. Whilst Canada has had an economic slump and the USA have been dealing with high inflation and ever-increasing national debt, their economies are resting on vast natural and industrial resources, and an active electorate keeps their politicians in check. The best-performing economy of the last 6 months of 2024 is that of the USA. A summary of countries and economic outlook. Source Bing, the United Kingdom. The UK economy is currently on the brink of recession, with the last 2 quarters of near-zero growth. Unemployment is relatively low at 4.3% compared to Eurozone, but rose a worrying 4% last October compared the October before. But the finance and tech sectors have seen a sharp decline in jobs over the past 2 years. Energy costs are amongst the highest in Europe and much higher than in the USA. Housing costs are escalating out of control. Canada, inflation is a concern. Prices have gone up considerably, notably rent and heating in major cities, but manufacturing and natural resource income remain steady, adding stability to the economy. The housing situation is bad in the major cities. United States, despite worrying inflation, economic activity including manufacturing and tech sector remains healthy, which saw a GDP growth of 3.1% in the last 2024 quarter. Unemployment has remained around 4% over the year. Housing varies with some significant issues in larger cities like New York and Los Angeles, but with a big country there is plenty to choose from. Australia, jobs market is healthy and unemployment fell from 4.1 to 3.9 over the past year. The overall economy is healthy, especially natural resources and tech sectors, but a concern is the high cost of housing. Ireland has a strong, robust economy, with an unemployment rate relatively stable at 4.2%. Of main concern is a bad housing market similar to that of the UK and Australia. New Zealand has a relatively robust economy from farming with an unemployment rate of 4.8%. The main issue is housing, which is scarce and expensive. My takeaway here is that the USA has the best economic prospects. Australia is solid and possibly the safest. All countries in the Anglosphere have serious problems with their housing markets, with UK, Ireland, Australia and Canada the worst. Let's move on to the European continent. I won't cover all countries, but here goes. Spain and France are the most popular choices in the Eurozone for Brits. Better climate, cheap food and decent space. Spain, France, Greece and Italy all show increased GDP of 1 to 3%, where Spain is at 3%. Unemployment, traditionally really bad for these countries, is showing marked improvement between 7 and 10%. Housing markets remain stable and in much better affordability zone than in the Anglosphere countries. Economic stability is increasing in Italy and Greece, with Spain and France facing some political stability issue with weak governments, with increased unpopularity amongst the general population. Democratic index is strong. Northern Europe, here I cover Germany, Sweden, Denmark, Norway and the Netherlands. A similar situation in all countries, with the underperformed being Germany, which has a similar immediate outlook to the UK. You are considering leaving. On the plus side, transport and housing is considerably more affordable. Slightly harder than the UK to find a job for the average person. The most prosperous country is as always Norway, with a negligible unemployment rate and a strong fiscal surplus. Slight concern is the housing market, which whilst high availability is expensive, as is food. Transport is relatively cheap. Sweden is doing well, though not as well as Norway, with a higher unemployment rate, 8% vs 4%. The housing market varies, with great affordability in the smaller cities and towns, but an affordability problem on par with the Anglosphere described above in the larger cities. Income taxes are still higher than in the UK for all Northern European countries, but corporation tax is lower. Public services, with the exception of Sweden, holds a higher quality than the UK. Public safety, with the exception of Sweden and Germany, is better than in the UK. Germany has part of its impressive manufacturing mothballed due to the European energy crisis following the conflict in Ukraine, which saw Russian gas supplies cut. Electricity prices vary, with peaks exceeding those even in the UK in Germany, Denmark and Sweden. The Netherlands is fairly stable, but the unhappiest electorate, which is probably a good thing, demanding better conditions for farmers. Norway, Denmark and the Netherlands have a large oil and gas industry, whereas Germany and Sweden relies heavily on imports of such products. Most citizens of Northern Europe, with perhaps the exception of Germany, speak English extremely well. In Germany, English proficiency is still high, but not as high as their northern and western neighbours. Brits will find culture and integration relatively easy, with the Netherlands the easiest, also very close geographically to the UK. The region has similar weather to the UK, though the middle and northern parts of Sweden, as well as Norway, have more distinct seasons with very warm summers and very cold winters. The northern parts of Europe has an abundance of space, with much more vast distances than the average Brit may be used to. Eastern Europe is another area of the continent which has started to attract Brits. Poland and Czech Republic have good job markets, stable and safe countries with a more conservative ideology. Strong Christian countries. Growing industrial and tech sectors will see attracts large international companies. Relatively low income and corporate taxes. Turkey has for decades been a popular retirement choice, with very affordable living including housing, food and private healthcare. The warm climate of the southern part helps much too. Turkey is a moderately Islamic country, which is not in the European Union. Politically, it has managed to maintain itself as both a partner of Russia and the USA and the EU at the same time. Turkey is quite welcoming to foreigners as long as they follow local laws. For Turkey, though, professional advice is recommended, especially concerning buying a house. Staying the region, Israel is a relatively Western wealthy country with a very strong tech and services sector, as well as some agriculture. The warm climate is welcoming also. The tensions of the Middle East is an obvious concern, but the country enjoys unparalleled support from the United States, so remains politically and economically stable. Recommended for young people who want to work in the tech sector, as well as older people looking to retire. Relatively affordable, though less so than Turkey. Going south into Africa. Westerns tend to look at Egypt and South Africa due to familiarity from holidays and such. There are safer, more stable options, however. Namibia, a relatively peaceful country north of South Africa, offers an affordable peaceful living and a good location for retirees. They also offer a nomad visa, which is perfect for working professionals such as remote IT engineers who want to work from another country. Excellent climate and good internet connectivity. Ghana is a relatively peaceful West African country 6 hours away from London by plane, with several strong advantages: safe, friendly, stable politically, strong on freedom of speech and access to information. Warm climate and affordable easy access to modern housing. On the perhaps con side is that the country, like most its nearby countries, that it lacks a proper tourist and foreigner setup. To go to Ghana and nearby countries, it is easiest if you already know people in the country. Make friends there and then your life can be much easier, but bear in mind that, quote, everyone wants to be your friend, unquote, as many people have an impression that Westerners are rich. This is not the fault of West Africans, as Hollywood and other production hubs like London has portrayed Westerners as unrealistically wealthy for a long time. Ghana has economic challenges such as high inflation and unemployment, and the new government was elected to deal with these. Corruption is relative to the area quite low. And the rule of law is highly respected. Ghana also offers special incentives for people of African descent to naturalize and become citizens easier and faster through a Welcome Home program. A number of Black US and Black UK citizens are taking advantage of this. Lots of planning, initial acceptance of lack of conveniences can get you to have a rich, fulfilling, happy life in Ghana. A member of the British Commonwealth, largely a Christian country and with English as the main language, adjustment is quite easy for Brits of any colour. Ghana is also in the same time zone, GMT not BST, as the UK, with the Greenwich Meridian crossing in the heart of the capital Accra. The country has excellent internet connectivity and an advanced mobile phones network. There is a low risk of natural disasters and a stable warm climate year-round. The only negative relative to the region is the prevalence of malaria, which is managed by anti-mosquito measures and/or long-term anti-malarial tablets. The positive flip side of the geographic disease conditions is the colds and flus are very rare and do not propagate well in the hot climate. There are plenty of other places like Argentina, El Salvador, Thailand to consider also. Do the same type of research as I did, and it can help you make an informed decision. Here are some places not to go to. This may generate some debate, especially for people from these countries, and I want to emphasize that this is not an attack on the population of these countries, but rather their leadership and such. China, I'll say, do not move here, with the exception if your business wants to place you there for a limited time. The future for China is uncertain, with economic problems looming, which will quickly get worse if the leadership decides to try and invade Taiwan. This will lead to instability and Western sanctions. Wars are also expensive and adds risk to the region. In the event war breaks out, Westerns may be targeted as spies or just face general discontent aimed at the leaders of the West. China lacks democracy and freedom of speech is severely restricted. South Africa, I hope that this advisory changes, because it is a beautiful country, but the public safety, particularly against whites and other Africans, have deteriorated compared to the Mandela years. Long gone are the days of Nelson Mandela's Rainbow Nation of Unity. Tensions have flared up with radical elements trying to take land from white farm owners by force, and also there have been xenophobic attacks against West African guest workers, though these appears to have died down, but there are still tensions. The crime rate is very high and the economic outlook uncertain. Most of the Middle East political instability, uncertain economic future, wars plague the region, and there are serious problems with personal freedoms. Many expats have gotten into trouble for not observing strict laws around alcohol, recreational drugs and sexual activity. There are some other things to check, such as would you be welcome where you are going. I'll leave with some practical information. Ensure that your passport has at least 6 months validity, preferably a year. If not, get a new passport unless you are already a citizen of the country you are going to. For instance, if you are Swedish and you move to Sweden, or anywhere within the EU, as long as you have a valid Swedish passport, you are fine. Make sure you have a budget for any extra initial costs. Don't just go on a whim, but try and have income sorted, such as a job or money to run a business. Have your affairs in the UK settled. If a homeowner, sell or rent out your house, put your mail for redirection, for at a while make sure that you can take care of any medical needs in the new country. Fill out HMRC Form P85 to tell the taxman that you are leaving the UK. Cancel all bills, including council tax. If you have a pension, you need to inform them of your move and new address. If you have pets, check what vaccinations and permits they need to move with you. In the new country, you will need to register appropriately. For instance, in the USA, you have to get a Social Security (SSN) number before an employer can pay you, so get down to the Social Security office promptly as soon as you've started a job. One important consideration is if you are legally in the UK, but not a naturalized citizen, you are strongly encouraged to stay in the UK until you can apply for citizenship. Do so and then you can leave. This is so that you have an option to return when times change, and they will. Have the option. I should mention that under the UK Immigration Act, persons may only be naturalised citizens if they intend to stay in the UK. Once you have become a naturalised citizen, they of course can't stop you leaving. How do you feel about the UK and the political and economic direction? Are you considering to leave? Please leave a comment. Also, please remember not to give out any personal information. Thank you for watching.